Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the round review. We'll be reviewing round 4, the gather round, the almighty gather round. What an exciting round of football this has been. Now, technically speaking, the round is still going. We are in the fourth quarter of the Hawthorn-Collingwood game. But I have to record it now for some particular reasons. I've got a busy week ahead of me. So let's get straight into this. Starting off with a very disappointing game for Adelaide fans. Adelaide Crows 63 to Melbourne 78. They got absolutely killed. I thought the Adelaide Crows, they didn't look good enough. The first half was competitive, and then in that late second, early third quarter, Melbourne said, "Suck my big pixie dick," and they just showed they were more influential and more capable of winning the game. They were much better, Melbourne. They deserved to win. Adelaide sit at a remarkable 0-4. 0-4. Now, currently, they are sitting 15th on the ladder. They are joining winless Hawthorn, North Melbourne and West Coast, which is a big problem. Really big problem. Because Hawthorn, North Melbourne and West Coast are fucking shit. I don't know why I went that voice then. But if you're Adelaide, sitting at 0-4 and... bear in mind, guess who you play next week, Adelaide? You're playing the Carlton Football Club at home at Marvel Stadium. You're going to be 0-5. And the really interesting thing as well is next week, I think Hawthorn have winnable games. They're playing Gold Coast. I feel like that's a winnable game. And I think the West Coast Eagles could win against Richmond. Geelong will beat North Melbourne, you would think. So there is a chance next week Adelaide sit 0-5 and are dead, or second last, on the ladder. And if that does happen, my oh my, not good enough. Melbourne is sitting in second place comfortably. Obviously, they do have a game. They played a game extra than a couple other teams, Carlton, Geelong, etc., etc. But they're sitting only one loss, 4 wins at 130%, 129, So they're looking comfortable. Now, in terms of, didn't think there was any outstanding player apart from the GOAT, Max Gawn. I thought Max Gawn was brilliant. Petrarca was good. Fritsch was good. And then Pickett was good as well. For Adelaide, they were just useless. I mean, I feel like Adelaide, Dawson, Laird, Crouch, Keys, these players always have okay midfield games, but never enough to influence and work in tandem and as a team to outrun the other midfield. They weren't good enough, and subsequently, that is just such a stinker. Adelaide, I think, are now officially out the 8. Out the 8. They're never going to make the 8, which is sad because they look like such an exciting team, but they've let me down wholeheartedly, and I'm not going to forgive them. Next up, we've got the Lions versus the Kangaroos, 112-42. The Lions whooped them by 70 points. It was a pretty boring game. I'm not going to lie, it was so boring. Literally from the first quarter, we knew Brisbane were going to win, and they just kept kicking goal after goal after goal. Doesn't tell us anything. This doesn't teach us anything. The Melbourne game taught us Melbourne was great, and that arguably flag favourites, and Adelaide are not going to make the 8. This game just teaches us that Brisbane are obviously an amazing team, but it doesn't teach us if they're back or not because they're playing North Melbourne. You get what I'm saying? How are we meant to know if they're well and truly back? They have to wait until they play a relatively decent team. Now, looking at next week, Brisbane will seemingly get their their next test, against Melbourne at home, which I think is going to be a blockbuster game because Melbourne will want to win, but Brisbane will be wanting to prove that they're the real deal. So they would obviously be wanting to win that. Brisbane absolutely whooped them. Nothing really special about this. Danaher fucked them up. He was great. McCluggage, Neil, Zorko were all good. Sheasel having an outstanding year. Brownlow potential. Harry Sheasel. Watch him play football. He's a very good player. North Melbourne sits second last. Terrible win percentage. Terrible percentage. Also terrible win percentage. And the Melbourne Football Club. Not Melbourne Football Club. And the Brisbane Football Club sit 1-4 at 108. So they've already got a great percentage because of this. Let's move swiftly on because that game's pretty boring. The next game, a little bit less than 70 points, 69 points, haha. Port Adelaide demolished the Essendon Football Club. And watching this game was just basically, it was watching a midfield getting fucking killed by another midfield. Connor Rosie, Butters, and Horn Francis had the Essendon midfield done. In a spliff, lit up that spliff and smoked that juge because they were getting cooked. How good was Connor Rosie? 3 goals, 30-odd touches, 36 or something. He was just so phenomenal. Finlayson, Ben Jones, Georgiades, great comeback game. Rioli as well was really good. And then for Essendon, I mean, Gresham got the 3 goals. Merritt was good. Mackay was alright. Nothing special there. What this tells us is just Essendon aren't quite at that level, sorry. They sit at 2 wins from 4 games at a really bad 82%. And then you look opposite Port Adelaide, who could have won against Melbourne. They're sitting 3 wins from 4 games, so just the 1 loss against Melbourne, and they're at 147%. Port Adelaide are a good team, but I don't think they're the real deal. Moving on, we've got West Coast against the Sydney Swans, where the Sydney Swans were a little bit under threat. Harley Reid was cooking this game. We went into halftime, West Coast in the lead, and there were some big questions. We go into 3-quarter time, and the Swans were only up by around 2 goals. And in that last quarter, the Swans sort of put their foot down, but they only ended up winning by 26 points, which, I mean, is a decent margin, but it isn't reflective of how good West Coast were, I thought. Their best game of the year. And despite Sydney losing against Richmond, I thought this was Sydney's worst game of the year. Sydney are looking worse and worse week after week. This is their 3rd week in a row. They haven't been good. Now, they are 3rd on the ladder. 5 games played, 4 wins with 127%. But they're not looking like crazy good. I'm not going to lie. Next week, the Sydney Swans will have... I think... Oh, sorry, they've got a bye. Next week, they've got a bye. The week after, they've got the Suns at home. Where's the game I'm thinking of? Hawthorn away from home. So they don't really have many tests. But then they got the Giants at the SCG in round 8. But they didn't look that good. They still won. I mean, Goulden, Heaney, Warner, the normals, Grundy, Rowbottom were good for Sydney. And then for West Coast, like I said, Harley Reid was great. Waterman, Cripps were good. Duggan, Yo. So nothing amazingly special from that game. But what we learn is Sydney is maybe a little bit fraudulent and West Coast are getting better. Now, the biggest game of the round, for the wrong reasons, Fremantle lost by 10 points to Carlton, 63-73. And this was a game categorised by an awful umpiring decision and controversy all around the pitch. Now, for a bit of context, if you don't know what's going on, this was a great game. Back and forth, really interesting. 2 really good teams, great systems. And it comes down to the last quarter where it was up for grabs. Fremantle were up by 1.5 goals with around 4 minutes left. And you thought, it's theirs. They've got to play smart. And then Kerno kicks a goal, Charlie Kerno, and it's down to a goal. And then the Matthew Cottrell goal with a couple minutes left. James H. touches the ball off Hewitt's foot. If you haven't seen it, go look it up online. A clear, such an obvious deflection. The ball's going like this. He kicks it off his boot, deflects like that. It was mental. Off the boot, deflects like that. The umpires weren't in the correct position to call that. Obviously, they couldn't see it. I mean, certain angles we saw on TV, it was hard to see. But there's a couple angles where it's like so fucking obvious. It's a literal massive change in direction. And then following that goal, which put Carlton in front, there was a dissent free kick against Jordan Clark, where it hasn't come out as of recording yet what he says, but there's still controversy over that because they won't come out and say what Jordan Clark said. But obviously, you'd be fucking fuming as a Fremantle player and fan, because Carlton, not only are they number 1 for free kick differentials, they get all the free kicks in the world, so they're paying the umpires like that. They've said to the Fremantle, to the umpires of this game, we'll give you a fat stack of cash if you do this for us. And they did, because the umpires are so blind, and they gave Carlton that win. I thought Fremantle deserved the win, and that really pissed me off. But let's just move on. We'll talk about the good players. So, yeah, the good players were... Kerno was good. I mean, he finally got into it. But I think the best player was Brayshaw. He was phenomenal. Wiedering and Cripps were pretty decent. Clark, Young, Ace, No outstanding performers. Sarong was a bit poor. But that unfortunately puts Fremantle their first loss. They are 3-4, sitting in 7th place. And the stingy Carlton Football Club are alongside 2 other clubs with GWS and Geelong as undefeated. Which is bullshit because they should have lost. Let's move on before I do something bad. This game was also amazing. Great comeback from the Western Bulldogs, but they did lose 91-95 to the Geelong Cats. A super close game in the end. That last quarter was riveting. The last 5 minutes was riveting. But throughout the whole game, you just thought Geelong just had that extra dazzle of class, which got them over the line. The Dogs midfielders were going crazy. Luba had like 16, 17 clearances, 30 plus touches. The Bon had a goal and 35 touches. Trelaw had like 37 touches. Amazing midfielders. And the Geelong midfielders didn't really do much. But that doesn't matter because they couldn't capitalise the Dogs. And they were not good enough. Geelong were the better team. And they deserved to win that game. I thought Jeremy Cameron was great. Graham Myers was brilliant. Tom Stewart doing what Tom Stewart does. And Stengel had a decent game. He's been a bit quiet for the last couple of rounds. Darcy was good for the Dogs. That tall motherfucker, holy shit, he's tall. He kicked 3 goals alongside Hugo Hagen. He kicked 2. Now this leaves the Dogs in a predicament, being 2 wins from 4 games. But the Geelong Football Club go into the next round undefeated. And just for a bit of context of who the undefeated teams play, we have got GWS who are undefeated. I'll talk about them a bit later. They're playing St Kilda next week. That's a win. We have got the Geelong Football Club taking off North Melbourne. That's a win. And we have got the undefeated Carlton taking on Adelaide, which is also a win. So you would think going into round 5, the 3 undefeated teams stay undefeated. Let's move on to the team I just mentioned, GWS. They had a comfortable win. It was a bit dodgy at times. Gold Coast were in the lead near the end of the 3rd quarter, but that last quarter, GWS sort of put the foot down. I thought they were probably the better team that day, but great fight from Gold Coast. A very high-scoring game, which might concern Adam Kingsley and Damien Hardwick, but I thought they were good. This was a fun game to watch. King was great with 3 goals, and Toby Green and Jesse Hogan were the difference. Even Brown getting 3 goals. He's had a great season so far. Jake Riccardi's really going well, and Cornelio was probably BOG. Anderson was really good for the Suns as well. But Toby Green, 5 goals, Hogan, 4 goals. That's ultimately what won them the game. We're going to move on straight away to a game I've already covered. If you don't know, I cover Richmond games specifically in separate videos. Richmond lost 60-67 to St Kilda. We probably deserved to lose. St Kilda were very woeful in front of goal. Interesting game. Probably a little bit more symbolic of maybe... No, not even where St Kilda is. I think this was just a game of where St Kilda were just a little bit better than Richmond, which is why we lost. We were ahead in the first half, and the second half St Kilda put their foot down. But if you want to listen to that more in depth, go watch my other video about Richmond. Now, like I already mentioned, I'll go through the ladder first, but Collingwood are currently only winning this game. I can literally turn around and tell you they are only winning this game by 15 points, which is surprising because I have watched the first half of this, the first 3 quarters. I'm recording this in the last quarter, but there's currently around not long left. You would say around 10 minutes or 7 minutes left. If Collingwood win this game, which they would presumably do if they've got the experience to, they will be sitting 2 wins from 5 rounds, which puts them at a... what am I saying? Yeah, which puts them in around 11th place, which is okay. Like, it's okay. They'll sit just below the Suns. Look, I don't really know what's going to happen in this game, but you would assume Hawthorn don't win. Collingwood have been the better team all day. Having watched this game, Dacos has been brilliant. The Ginnivan stuff's been really interesting, how he's handled all the attention and stuff like that. But Collingwood have been the best team, I think. Tom Mitchell's been really good alongside Josh Dacos. Nick Dacos having a bit of a quiet one. In terms of the goals, Blake Hardwick kicking 4 goals. And then Lockie Schultz, Jay Schultz, bloody hell, bit of a throwback there for you. Jay Schultz getting a couple as well. So, assuming Collingwood win this, they'll go into the 5th round in their bye, sitting around 10th, 11th place. Hawthorn will not go below, you would think they don't, they could go below North Melbourne on percentage if they get demolished. But
got it totally wrong. They nearly won the game, Hawthorn. They came back. What a fucking game that was. Holy shit. I'm glad I caught the end of it, but the Pies still won.
I'm going to watch the end of this game, but you will know the result when you're watching this video. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned, and I'll be seeing you in another video.